So bear with me. There's a level of greed that controls every single level of this system. And that greed infects damn near everything and everybody without question. And if anyone is under the impression that their favorite politician is not affected or encumbered by that greed, then they are sadly mistaken. And they are themselves participating in a level of delusion, political delusion, that quite frankly is asinine. It's asinine. And here's why I say that is because we see it at every turn. I had a caller, the one live caller that I was able to get in today was talking about how it's not just about profits, but it's also about the power that corporations can leverage over workers. And the reason they want to leverage that power over workers is because it helps them to maintain economic power. It's like a cyclical feedback. Right? If workers and the labor force ever got enough political power, then we would be a direct threat to their economic bottom line. So at the core of it all is greed. And the fact that Wall Street and corporate America can breathe a sigh of relief because Kamala Harris is on the ticket versus let's say even Elizabeth Warren, but especially Bernie Sanders, shows you exactly what you need to know in terms of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And now the fact that I am extremely irritated. I am extremely irritated and furious. That's not the word I'm looking for. Infuriated. I am furious and infuriated at the fact that our choices, very seriously here though, that our choices have dwindled down to nothing more than a choice between fascism and neoliberal capitalism. That's our choice. And of course, in that choice, reasonable people are going to choose neoliberal capitalism. But the fact that that is our choice is the real dilemma. And the reason that is our choice and it is a real dilemma is because greed has perverted every aspect of human life. We celebrate it. We write songs about it. We damn near worship it. We have movies about it. It has become the foundation of our society. Greed. And so that's why I feel like if you are a person who believes that your party is the noble party, I have to really pause and question if you understand. And I'm talking to people who still feel like all of the problems are going to go away as soon as Democrats get in power. Major problems will go away, like the reckless mishandling of COVID-19 by the Trump administration. That will go away. And we'll have probably a very methodical process between between a new quarantine, a level of shutdown, depoliticizing masks, all the way to the point of vaccination and getting back to normal. But the problem of greed is not going to go anywhere. That's because the Democratic Party is committed to it. That's because the Democratic Party is as committed to the greed of Wall Street as Republicans are. And all they're seeking to do is to make sure that we don't get to the point where Americans rebel. They will throw us a bone. They may even come in and quite frankly, we would all be grateful if they came in and made sure that everybody had enough to survive on throughout the rest of this pandemic. And they gave us a universal basic income. That would be great. But that would not change the nature, the fundamental driving force behind our political system in general. The fundamental driving force behind our political system in general is greed. Period. Now, what I was talking about at the end of the public show is the fact that greed will be with us always. And I don't believe that there's a way that we can successfully legislate it away. We can try to mitigate it. We could try to punish it. We could try to discourage it. But people will always be able to contemplate and think of greed. Greed would always be there. Jealousy, just like jealousy would always be there, right? Just like evil, just like hate, just like all those other ideas, they will be there. They will always exist. So the real question in the long run, is how do we manage our human propensity for greed that will never go away? Even if we got our perfect socialist utopia, greed will never go away. And so, I mean, just that real quick play of knowledge, right? That real quick thought process, you can conclude that there will never be a utopia. Because even in the closest thing as we approach to utopia, somebody will be able to contemplate and then act on their greed. And then what do? Do we punish them? We imprison them? We can't get rid of greed is the point. So that now that we know that we can't get rid of greed, the question is how do we mitigate the effects? How do we keep it from becoming the sacred cow of an entire civilization? Like, the big thing is how did we get here in the first place on this planet where we celebrate something that we all know is so damning and detrimental? In every one of our lives, in every part of our life, we've always been told and we've been shown the damaging effects of greed. But yet, we're taught it in school. We're taught it in Sunday school. We're taught it in all of our every single religion. We teach our kids not to be greedy. We teach them to share. But once we get past that fairy tale age, what do? We embrace greed. We push it. We valorize it. We venerate it. We elevate it in society. And so now we are at a place where our entire economic system in this country is built off of greed. It's celebrated. It's venerated. It is the crown jewel. And if you don't embrace it, then you're looked down upon as some type of anathema. See, editing this is going to be difficult because I can edit on the podcast quicker than I can edit on the video portion because I didn't use anathema right, but fuck it. Let's just keep going. So I used anathema wrong doing this for the podcast. I did it wrong, used it wrong. But anyway, I'm not even going to worry about editing it at this point. I just want to finish this train of thought. Anyone who looks down on greed and anyone who, you know what, we're also we're seen as something abnormal, right? But more than that, we're seen and viewed as naive because we want to move away from greed. At the core of what we're doing on the left, I can't speak for everybody on the left. I'm not responsible for everybody on the left, but the people that I run with and me, let me just talk about me. I'm fighting for a system that does not reward greed because we see the detrimental effects of greed. We know it. The reason we try to valorize it. I'm trying to be delicate with this because I was going to say the reason you have 40 million Americans getting ready to be put out is because of greed. But then somebody is going to try to provide cover for them and say, well, what are the landlords supposed to do? At the core of every venture is the profit incentive to maximize your profits. And if you can't set aside your profits, and if it all starts at the top. It's not the landlord's fault by themselves. It's also the fault of our federal government because our federal government does not want to set aside the endless pursuit of profits just at least during this pandemic. And because the government won't do that, they're not going to provide any type of policies that is going to help the individual renter. And so therefore it puts the landlord in the position that if they want to get those profits, they got to get rid of that family and put somebody else in there so that they can get those profits. It is all one big cycle of destruction fueled by greed. And it's what we celebrate in this country. It's what we celebrate on the face of this planet. And it will always be here. We have to become a people and a society that rejects greed. Just outright rejects greed. It is seductive. It is attractive. It is very insidious. It sneaks up in even the best of us. And if we do not actively reject greed, we will always fall prey to it. If we do not actively reject greed, we will always fall prey to it. I don't know if there's anything more to say about that right now. I think I kind of want to just leave it there. There are more things that I want to say about this topic in general, but it's an individual thing right now. Eventually, it needs to become a collective thing, a group, a large enough group of people who rejects the greed of this system, and enough people who have enough economic power to act on that. That's something that it has to become. But right now, it really just drives home the point of us as individuals that are we capable, are we ourselves capable of rejecting greed and saying something is enough, like what we have now is enough? Or will we, even as socialists and those of us who dream of utopia and those of us who fight for a better place, better system, will we fall prey to that same greed?